Hi folks. So, here are the 10 collies I was talking about in the last video. Yes. Yeah. Anyway. I was just watching the first episode of House of David. And in that, you had the bit in the end where Samuel is speaking to Saul and taking the king position away from Saul. And says to Saul, why did you fear man and not God? And that's the point. When I look at the church, why do you want to please man and not God? Because again, wanting to please man is about fearing man. It's about fearing rejection of man. So I don't care. Again, I was rejected by someone else last night. Do I care? No. Can you tell my voice? I really could not care less about that. No, not at all. I don't care. I'm who I am. I'm going to continue to be who I am. And I'm someone who I don't try not to offend. If I sense with the person last night, I asked a question, and this offended the person. This is why they blocked me. I asked a question of, what do you care most about? Your friend's life, or your friend's destination, or your friendship? Say with a friend, what's the most important thing about that? And that's when I was blocked by the person. Well, of course, that's because I'd already sensed in this individual they would care more about the relationship than they would about their friend's destination. So would they speak truth to a friend if they knew that their friend might actually reject them and the friendship could be ended because of what they said? I think the answer is no. And so therefore, asking that question, I'm going to continue to do that because it matters. It matters. I don't care whether you get offended. The reality is, it matters. These things matter when it comes down to it. Yeah. Are you someone who is going to speak truth, no matter what it might cost you? So, for example, in a church, if you're in a church and you know that speaking truth will help someone's life, but you also know that by speaking that truth, you might get banned from that church, what are you going to do? I know, for me, I'm going to speak truth because I couldn't care less. If they want to ban me, they can ban me. They can do that. Yeah. And they can do that because they have every right to do that. Yeah. From the point of view that this is not a church of God, the pastor's name at the church down the road is Rick. So therefore it's a community church of Rick. It's not the community church of God, that church. It's the Elgin Community Church of Rick. Because it's a community church of Rick, it means that he has the right to decide who he bans and doesn't ban, who has the right to come to that church. It's his church. Now, of course, they should therefore change their name. They've actually taken, at one point in time, it used to actually say Elgin Community Church of God. They've taken of God off the title. Clever. As if that makes a difference. But there you go. It was never of God. It was of Manuel beforehand, and it's transferred to of Rick. But it was never of God. Never. Again, apparently Rick's wife, her father was the one who put that church in the area, started that church. Well, if he'd done a good job, I'm pretty sure that his daughter would be correcting Rick right now on how to do things. So clearly, his father-in-law did a pretty crap job of it as well. But he couldn't have been a good teacher because his daughter thinks that the way her husband is doing things is right. If her father had done a good job and was doing things according to God, I'm pretty pretty sure she would have learned God's way rather than the world's way. But she clearly learned the world's way. Who from? Dad. Most likely. Again, can't be certain about that. But that's why I say that church itself has never therefore been of God. Oh, it's funny actually. Because in that house of David, you have Samuel removing the presence of God. He says, I anointed you, and therefore he has his hands basically crossed, his arms crossed, crosses his arms and makes it wide, and that's taking the presence of God away from Saul. So I said to God, oh, can I do that? Can I? Really? Can I do it? Can I go to those churches and do that? And God says, yeah, you can do that. I said, will it work? He said, nope. Oh, yeah, you've got to ask. You've got to ask. You see Saul doing it? Well, is that the way to do it? Yeah, can I go and do that? Well, because generally speaking, what do I think these churches need? Do I think if the presence of God was taken away from them, do I think that they would, some of them at least, would then wake up? Yeah. Some of them would. Would all of them? No. No. If I did that and took the presence of God away from Elgin in totality, do I think it would make a difference? To some people, yes. To others, no. No. No, as I say, to most people it wouldn't. Because, if we've got churches like the Community Church of Rick, then it will be a case where obviously, they're not of God. So because they're not of God, they won't really notice the presence of God not in their church. They will notice that there's slightly less joy, slightly less hope. But because a lot of the joy and hope is fake and pretend, then... Because basically, if you go to a concert, you go to a bar and you've got a group singing, you have people singing along and they're enjoying themselves, yeah? So they have a bit of joy. That's what you get in church. You don't get God's joy, you get the joy of people singing along together. So they still have that. And the hope, well, the world has hope. People have hope that they can win the lottery, that's hope. It's not hope in God, but it's hope. So they still have a degree of hope, won't they? So yeah, they wouldn't completely notice a lack of God's presence. And so, yeah. But I think it would work for those people that are actually of God in those churches. I think it would get their attention. I think it would wake them up, yes. Because, there are a lot of people in churches that are, asleep. Asleep on the job. Yeah. But asleep on the job because right now, again, that they're waiting for God to do something because they're in a church where they're basically suffocating. Where they're in this situation. They're basically in quicksand and they're sinking. And so they're staying as still as they possibly can. But when the presence of God is removed, that is a rope handed to them. Because now they realise, oh, crap. I better get out of this then. Yeah. Because they've been remaining in churches that they maybe should have got out of a long time ago. And so at least it will give them that. It will get their attention. It would be like an alarm clock going off. But say for most people, it wouldn't. For most people, they got their alarm clock muted. And that's okay. So there you go. I wish you well. I hope that you are one of those people that is actually of God. And I hope that pretty soon the presence of God can be removed if it's going to help some. So there you go. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.